Thank you for joining us for another episode of Talk Talks, sponsored by Photographer Entrepreneurs Association. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the association, go to photographerentrepreneur.com to learn more about photography business resources, templates, training, and support. We'll see you over there. All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us again. We have another exciting interview planned today with Curtiss Bryant. So welcome Curtiss for joining us today. We're excited because he's a world traveler. So to actually get him on one-on-one here for a chat was great because he's got such a busy schedule and he does a lot of destination work, which we're really excited about having him share a little bit about his experience. So welcome Curtiss.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah. Let me tell everyone a little bit about him, and then we'll dive right in and start chatting a little bit more and learn a little bit more about you and your business. So,
okay, sounds good.
So Curtiss is the owner and photographer, along with his wife, Valerie, of Curtiss Bryant Photography in Central Florida. He has a degree in marketing and has been a professional photographer since 2005. Curtiss specializes in photographing weddings and high school senior portraits. He's been published in international publications several times and has won several photography awards for his work, including being named as one of the top 100 senior photographers for 2016 and 2017 by Senior Style Guide, which that's a huge, huge accomplishment.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
So why don't we start off just telling us a little bit about yourself, Curtiss, and your experience, your expertise, and maybe share something about your photography business that not that many people know about.
Yeah, so like I said, we started in 2005. The idea behind it was, at the time I was still in college. I was pursuing a marketing degree, which I ended up getting. And the idea behind the business was my wife did a little bit of photography in high school and college, and she kind of wanted to do that on the side. So we were going to create a business for her to do, stay-at-home mom, you know, kind of hang out, kind of let her do her thing. I was going to go work at like a big corporation somewhere in a marketing department, something like that. And we found out early on that she doesn't like people. So it's not like that she doesn't like people. She just doesn't like talking to people, selling herself, you know, talking to them about her pictures. She'd rather just stand in a corner, take pictures, and kind of be like the fly on the wall type thing. So I kind of stepped in and did like the meetings. I did the marketing for it. I did the phone calls, you know, all that type of thing, because that's kind of what my background was in. And our first wedding we booked was that year. And like most people, we started, you know, it was like $500, I think it was. Didn't really know what I was doing. I was like, hey, let's do this wedding. You know, they're gonna pay us $500 to do it. We're gonna be there all day. You know, it sounds super cool. It's $500. You know, at the time we're like, hey, we're gonna be rich. Yeah. So we kind of shot that, and we found out that she doesn't like being in front of people either. So I had to go shoot the ceremony as she's coming down the aisle. Just kind of like threw it all together and made it all happen. But kind of since then, I'm real hands-on, so I've kind of picked up the camera and learned things, watched YouTube videos for hours on end. We didn't have Creative Live back then to do. So we just kind of picked it up and just kind of went with it. And now, fast forward, we're 2017. I run most everything. She kind of helps out and does like the newborn pictures, things like that. She's second shooter for the wedding. But we've kind of built a business out of something that we weren't really planning on doing at the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting that, so she was initially the photographer. She kind of dragged you into it. And then you guys, you know, basically identified your strengths and your weaknesses, the egos aside, and you're like, okay, hold on, I'm better at this. You're better at that. So, and it sounded like you said from like a people person standpoint, it sounded like maybe she enjoys like the newborns because they're not adults and they probably don't get same frustrations.
Yeah, I mean, her thing is she loves babies, so she wants to cuddle babies all day long. My rule is generally if I can't tell them what to do and they don't do it, then I don't photograph it.
Yeah, that's kind of my rule.
Pets, for the most part, I didn't know a whole lot of pets. You know, 5, 6 years old is probably about where I start in doing pictures. She kind of does everything before that.
One of the interesting things over the last couple of years of us knowing you is that even when Melissa said earlier on, like you're known for your destinations, right? And when in photography, when you hear like destination photographer, 100% of the time, almost 100% of the time, you think and assume weddings. And really, you know, you really have a really great twist where this, I'm sure you've done some destination wedding stuff, but really what we know you for is destination seniors. And I think that really caught you know, a lot of people off guard, like, wow, you can actually do that. Like, this is really interesting. Is there something, Melissa was just asking a minute ago, is there anything outside of that though, that people really don't know about you? Because I think you were just asking that a second ago, maybe about your business or how you work. Is there like something that just hasn't been revealed publicly yet? Doesn't have to be bad.
Yeah, you're just looking for my deep, dark secrets. That's really what this is. It's like a mining operation. Get all everyone's ideas. No, I mean, outside of the senior stuff, I mean, we just, like I said, we just kind of started the business. That wasn't really the intent. I mean, the intent was to just kind of do it on the side. And just kind of blossomed from there. But I mean, if I was to come up with something that people don't really know about, is that I'd probably say like magazine type work. I'm looking at creating like a magazine, kind of like a Vogue magazine, but make it more for high school seniors. So it comes out, it's, you know, articles that would be, you know, beneficial to them, you know, things like that, images that would be related to them, and not quite like the 17 magazine type stuff where it's all like girly, you know, stories of this and that. And so kind of like real life type stuff for that. So we're looking at kind of doing something with that here the next year or so.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's great.
So you've had a lot of different experiences. Can you share with everyone one of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in your business?
Yeah, and it's actually, it's funny that you say that, because most people look at, you know, the photographers that are successful, that appear to be successful as, you know, up on this pedestal. We kind of talked a little bit about it earlier, but we still have struggles that everybody else goes through. And so we're launching our 2019 senior model program. Just the last couple of weeks we started launching it. To kind of put it in perspective, I had 55 girls for our 2018 program. Signups officially ended last week for our 2019 program. We had 15. So we've dropped from 55 to 15, and it's just kind of, it's the trend in the industry. So we've got to kind of overcome, you know, find ways to overcome that, just like everyone else does. So I mean, it's not like every single year it's, you know, clockwork, we get this, we get this. We still have to work to get the same business that we had previously.
Yeah,
that's very real. I said to Melissa over and over, when we go to the conventions, it's like, once the lights on the stage turn off and, you know, all the banners are taken down, all the rock stars and everything, whoever is put up, you know, in that moment on the pedestal, when we all go home, we have to hustle just as hard as the next person. Yeah. And that's the part that I think a lot of people forget. They just think it's given to you. When we all go back in our local markets, we're just another photographer that has to position themselves and has to get on the grind just like everybody else.
And I'd actually argue that we have to do it a lot harder than most normal people, because we're also on that national level to where people look up to us. So we also got to kind of, quote unquote, impress them as well. So it's a little bit harder for us because we're still, you know, real businesses. We still have the same struggles everybody else does, but we've got to kind of overcome that because people look to us for advice and things like that. So we kind of do a little bit better than we would try to do otherwise.
Great point.
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
Point.
So I guess dealing with this challenge and maybe other challenges in the past, can you share maybe a marketing strategy that you have used or maybe are planning on using that's worked really well for you?
Yeah. So like I said, I had a marketing degree. So that's kind of what I got started with. And I always advise new photographers is like focus on the business aspect of things. Don't necessarily focus on, you know, being the best photographer in the world. You can be the best photographer in the world. No one knows who you are. Then you could be a broke photographer. That's very good. Focus on the business aspect of it and kind of pull yourself away from the struggles of, you know, becoming a better photographer in your own mind. But as far, you know, taking that approach to the marketing aspect, we've kind of built the senior model program. So traditionally senior pictures have been, you know, we go do a session outside, you know, an hour or so, something like that. And then that's it. They're done with their session. It's a local session. So now we kind of built into the model program and experience aspect of it. So as times change, we want to kind of provide something that's a little bit different. So the marketing aspect of this would be they get like a full year-long experience with us versus just the individual session. And that's kind of pulled a lot of the girls through into our senior portrait business because they're getting the different experience for that. So marketing wise, you know, just kind of creating a business that people want to be a part of, creating the experience that they want to enjoy rather than just focusing on pictures and giving pretty pictures to people.
Nice. Can you kind of share a little bit what that experience, like if you were a senior, like what would that look like?
Yeah, so we start their junior year. So like I said, we had just finished up the signups, and we kind of do the signups right before Christmas. Whatever genius decided, and this is me, whatever genius decided to do this before Christmas and ask people to spend thousands of dollars before Christmas, was like genius. But anyway, so we kind of start their junior year. It allows them the full year. So it goes from about February, March, all the way through their senior year, which is May. So it gives them the full year experience. We do monthly photo shoots. We do different things that they're able to participate in. Everything that we do is optional. So if they choose to participate in it, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. So it's not like they're being forced to do something. So everybody's experience is a little bit different based on what they want to do. So pictures like underwater pictures, we do powder paint, we do sports theme type sessions. So each month we do a different theme, something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, not like a normal, hey, let's go outside by the trees or whatever. So kind of underwater pictures, no one really does underwater pictures. So it kind of gives them that experience of doing something completely different for that. And then our focus with that isn't necessarily to sell more pictures. Underwater pictures is one of those things that we're providing the experience for them. Something that they've never done before. So it's just about the joy of going out and doing something. For the most part, no one's going to put a 40 by 60 underwater picture with their face all poofed out and fluffy up on their wall. So it's not necessarily about selling additional pictures. It's just about providing additional experience for them for the year.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
great.
that.
Yeah, you're really taking a lot of people that are struggling pricing wise, they're looking at photography more on the commodity side.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is you're positioning yourself and packaging this entire experience. Whenever Melissa and I travel, that key word, we see it everywhere on high-end brands these days. You're starting to see the word experience actually being part of the labeling of a lot of products and services these days. And the moment that you see that, you're going to pay a little bit more money, because it's not just the commodity, whatever the product or service is, it's the entire thing that's wrapped around it. So that's great to see.
Yeah, I always tell people, like in our client meetings, when we have the meetings, because we bring them into the studio before they sign up for it, the first thing I tell them is like, if you guys are just here for pretty pictures, I'm not the photographer for you. Because anyone down the street can do pretty pictures. That's not what we're doing. We're not selling pretty pictures. The end result of the experience that they're getting is pretty pictures. So I always likened it to like Disney. So people spend tens of thousands of dollars a year to go to Disney. They're not going to ride rides. They're going for that Disney experience that they can't get anywhere else. If they just wanted to ride rides, they stay locally, stay at their fair, every year and do it for free. So same type of thing here. If they just wanted the pretty pictures, we're not necessarily for them, but that experience aspect that no one else really can provide is what we're pushing.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
great.
awesome. So for someone that's just starting off in photography, what would be one of the best pieces of advice that you would give them when starting off their business?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, focus on the business aspects. My number one piece of advice would be to get off Facebook groups, mainly because of the image comparison. So we go on there as a new photographer, you go on Facebook, your eyes are, you're super wide-eyed because you're looking at all these amazing pictures, and you go back and look at your own pictures, you're like, well, crap, my pictures suck. But the reality of it is that your pictures, while quote unquote aren't as good as somebody else's, people within your local market have no idea who those people are. So you have like the big names in the industry that everybody follows, that we know who they are because we're in that industry. We see those pictures. The average client that comes in the street isn't going to know who any of those people are. So they're going to be looking at our images, and also kind of keep in mind that what we're selling is personal to those people. If there's been never a parent that says, hey, that picture is horrible of my kid. It could be the worst picture in the world, and then they're still going to be like, hey, that's the most amazing picture in the world is my kid. So a lot of times we kind of hold other photographers up on a pedestal and kind of compare our stuff to them. We get discouraged by it and be like, oh, I can't charge what they're charging because my pictures aren't as good. When the reality is that the people in the local market would want kind of what you're offering because they have no idea what else is out there.
Sure. It's a great point.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed how many people, it seems like it's a full-time job that they're hanging out in these Facebook groups all day, every day, and they're not making money because they're totally sucked into looking at that scroll of everybody else's images and doing the comparison syndrome,
Right.
So that's great advice. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. It's something that you don't really think about that often, that it's just as simple as that can really shift your mindset with that, and then just focus on you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good information in the group. So, I mean, there's a lot of like lighting tips and things like that. So obviously, you know, pay attention to that. But the biggest thing that I see people struggle with is, you know, am I good enough? And it's I need to price, you know, I need to sell $1,000 in pictures a month to be able to make whatever I want to make for it, whatever. But then they're looking at, well, this photographer down the street does it, you know, wherever. But their picture is so much better than mine. Why would people pay for that for me? And the reality of it is that this is a business first. So if we focus on the business aspect of it first, then we're able to, you know, sell and things like that, rather than focusing on the artistic aspects. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to be better. I mean, everyone should strive to be better at what they do. Whether it's McDonald's flipping hamburgers, we should be the best, you know, hamburger flipper in the world. But we focus too much on, you know, making pretty pictures, and that ends up discouraging us in the long run because we're comparing ourselves constantly to other people, and we're not able to focus on the business aspect of it.
Perfect.
Love it.
Yeah,
love it.
Great points.
All right. So here's a fun question. If you had to relocate to a new area today with no clients and no one knew who you were, and you had $1,000 in your business bank account, what would be the first thing you would do to grow your business?
Are we able to go to a casino and put it on like a black or something? No, but seriously.
Odds with that.
I mean, there's so much free stuff out there that you could probably you could do it without $1,000. And I can kind of go over something here in a second for that. But if we're spending $1,000, probably what I would do is it would depend on your market. For me, it would be high school seniors is kind of what we're focusing on. So I would be pushing into trying to get a hold of the parents. So whether it be a Facebook ad campaign, doing $1,000 that way, whether it's going to the Chamber of Commerce, joining the Chamber of Commerce, networking with other business professionals who likely have kids, and kind of building it that way, kind of like a grassroots thing, kind of build your way up. Taking out vendors. So there might be a venue, and I don't know how it is in different areas, but like in Florida, for example, everyone does graduation parties. So after graduation, they all host a huge party. Usually it's at one of the higher end venues, and it's like catered meals and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a little wedding reception. So you can go to those areas and, you know, take out the wedding coordinators, take out, you know, those types of people, to dinner, coffee, introduce yourselves to them. But like I said, there's a lot of free stuff out there. So for me, high school senior, the best way to do that is get involved with the sports programs. So maybe, you know, spend a couple $100, put it into a business ad that goes in the program. Now those program ads, they're not targeted. They're not, you know, all of that. So it's not necessarily about getting people to see that to come to you. It's about building the relationship with the booster clubs and things like that. So now you're donating to them. They're more likely to listen to you when you come ask them something. And be like, hey, do you guys know of any high school seniors? Now that I've given you money, that, you know, their ears open up more.
Good point.
Yeah.
So things like that. But like getting involved with the sporting programs, getting involved with the schools if you can. I know there's a lot of lockout clauses, things like that. But that $1,000 can go a long way. It doesn't have to be, you know, expensive stuff that you're doing. Just, you know, kind of building networks in the community.
Yeah.
No, what I'm really excited is your initial reaction that comes from like your marketing background, because I think the same way. It's kind of like, well, hold on. Just because I have the $1,000 doesn't mean that that's where the answer is. Let me just push that money aside initially. And here's like the 15 different things I can do for free, you know, right out, or virtually free, right out the gate to build my influence. And we're huge about face-to-face contact, building relationships, because so many people are stuck online all the time. And the moment that you break bread or you make eye contact with people. So the majority of things that you said could simply be a coffee. It could be a lunch. It could just be you going to that wedding venue or whatever and knocking on their door and meeting them. It takes people out of their comfort zone a little bit. But if that was just all gas money to get to those places, you could last a long time on that $1,000 and make a huge impact because you're meeting people face to face.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I would consider, for me, if I was to move to, like, say, up to where you guys are, I have absolutely no idea who anybody is up there. The biggest struggle that I have as a male photographer in the senior industry is that creep effect, or the creeper, you know, mentality. So where, oh, this guy just wants to take pictures of, you know, whatever. So the girls, red flags come up when I message them. It's like, hey, this guy just messaged me about doing pictures. If I was a female, it wouldn't be an issue at all.
Right.
So I would also consider finding a space, like an office space, you know, something relatively cheap, It doesn't have to be $1,000 a month, a couple $100 here and there, and make that as a meeting location. So rather than meeting in a Starbucks, things like that, it gives you more professional appearance to meet in an office space that's dedicated to what you're doing. So like when we first opened our studio back 2000, I think it was like 2006 or 7, we're about 2 years into the business. We decided we were tired of meeting at Starbucks and things like that. So we just pretty much went and opened up a studio space. We didn't have any money saved in the bank account. We had nothing. My philosophy was, I was 24 at the time, I think. I was like, worst case scenario, this doesn't work. We file bankruptcy. We go move in with mom and dad. So we,
you went for it. You went for it.
Yeah, so we ended up opening the space. Our first studio space was $1,300 a month. We were bringing in at the time about $500 a month. So there was about $800 difference there. But the biggest thing for us is once we opened that studio space, I became more active. Now I had a bill that I had to pay. I had to reach $1,300 a month to break even. So now instead of sitting on Facebook, chatting, wasting time, or at my full-time job doing something, I'm now full-time in photography. I'm able to go out in the community, be more active with things because now I had to make money doing it. So it was just kind of me. It was like just kind of push off the ledge of, okay, now you have to do it. Whether before when we worked full-time jobs, it was kind of like we did it on the side. If we had the extra $500, $1,000, whatever, it was great. If not, we still made our bills.
Right.
When we opened the studio space, it's like, okay, now you have to do it. And that kind of gave us the budge, to kind of do it.
Yeah, we call that positive pressure on our end. That it's something that typically, as human beings, we will go to the minimum that'll get us by. So it's interesting because I learned this years ago when I owned my real estate company and I learned this from somebody that's a billionaire actually. And they said that they typically, when they hire new people that are salespeople, that are basically commission based in that world, they normally ask to have a credit report pulled, and they want to know that they have a lot of debt. They know if they have a lot of debt, they're going to wake up every day and they're going to go out and hustle very hard in order to make all their bills because they have a higher, a standard for their lifestyle. But those that have little to no debt, they have no pressure. So it's like, oh, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. And also, like you said, like we used to call it the golden parachute, which was, the other job. It's like, oh, if I do anything, that's okay. Well, no, I don't have to wait. No, I don't want to make that call. No, that makes me uncomfortable. So I'm not going to bother doing it because you don't have that positive pressure. That's like, you got to do it, man. You got to wake up. So it's interesting how that pivot for you probably is what brought you to where you are now, because if you guys still stayed in those part-time jobs, you would have never passed that threshold because it's just always been a side thing and no pressure, type thing. So that's exciting because I think there's a lot of people that are going to be listening that, are at that point, and it's scary, and there's no guarantee. And the one thing I found, and I've had some, business failures in my life, but the only way to excel and succeed is you have to take those calculated risks, because that's what everybody else is not doing. And that's where just a little bit more is where everything's at. Yeah. So it's really exciting to see that you guys did this similar journey there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's, this is just off topic, but any advice for anyone that is going from that, doing this part-time and making that leap, what would you say to them? Because you guys went through that.
Yeah. It's about faith. I mean, it all comes down to that. If you're not 100% confident in what you're doing, then it's going to show when you go to client meetings. So, and this kind of goes back to the Facebook thing. If you're looking at other people's work, you're not comfortable with what you're producing, then you're never going to be able to, get to where you want to go. So being confident, and I'm one of those people, if you met me, you know that I come off as confident. My wife kind of hates it to an extent. Because she's complete opposite. So she's, worst case scenario for everything, glass is always half full. My glass is always overflowing, even if it's empty. So it's like, hey, we'll figure something out. We'll make it work. So I'm always positive about things. So, being positive is kind of key going into it. Yeah. But I mean, again, when we started it, we didn't have kids. It might have been a different situation, now where we have 3 kids, or maybe I don't necessarily leave and just take that jump. Because now, worst case scenario, I lose my house, I lose all this stuff, the kids are out on the street. Right. So it ends up being a calculated risk at the time. It wasn't anything, that big of a deal. Again, we move in with mom and dad. Kind of embarrassing, but, we're not going to die. Right. For it. Right. So now, again, a lot of people ask, how do we make the full-time to, full-time photographer type thing? I just tell them is like, start weeding off your full-time hours. If you're full-time at a different job, see if you can go part-time. Go from 40 hours a week to 20 hours a week. That gives you extra 20 hours of marketing, things like that, that you can work on your business. Because every minute away from your business is a minute that you're not, focused on pushing to get better. So if you're working 40 hours a week for someone else, then there's zero time for you to work, on your own business. So if you're able to scale that back, and again, that's only cutting, say from 40 hours to 30 hours, you might be losing $800 or whatever a month. By doing that, but that allows you the extra 10 hours a week to go out and focus on the business aspect to build your business. And it's taking a smaller risk, but still giving you that, I still have to make up this extra money. So it's still giving you that push that you need, but at a lower risk point.
Right.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So is there anything that you do on a daily basis or like a success ritual, something that you do that you think contributes to your success each and every day?
I have a little thing. It's with the travel stuff. So I'm addicted to travel websites. So I am on there all the time looking for like flights to different places. So almost every single day, probably 2 or 3 times a day, I get notifications on my phone. I get emails. So I'm looking for my next location to go to. So it's always, looking for the next location, looking for another destination that we can photograph, finding a deal somewhere, and even like deals on camera gear. So I'm like super hunting down the deals. I never pay full price for anything. So, that's kind of like my little quirk.
Love it. Love it. And is there a business resource or just any kind of resource that you use on a daily basis that you couldn't live without, that you really love, that's part of your business and part of your life?
Yeah, I'd say probably social media.
Okay.
And ironically, that's the answer I gave, even though I just bashed a second ago. But the main reason isn't necessarily for what you think it is. It's more for the social aspect with the clients. So it's posting images to social media. It's allowing people to see what I'm doing. It's interactions with this high school seniors. Mm-hmm. So I follow all of my seniors on Instagram. They all follow me. So I'll go on there a couple times a day, like pictures that they're posting, interact with them on there, tag people in different things. So just kind of building that relationship there. And so my goal with the business is kind of build relationships. So the best way to do that is be where those people are. So high school seniors, they're on their phones 24/7. So I'm on my phone with them, texting, we do group text, things like that. And then the goal is the long-term, is that we have these relationships built so that, after high school, they get into college, and after college, it's marriage, things like that. So then they end up coming back to us for their wedding.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a full circle. We just shot a wedding for a high school senior we did in 2016.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So just kind of like building those relationships. And in order to do that, I can't just kind of sit back and, not go on social media. So most of what I use social media for is, interacting with them, posting pictures, things like that.
Good. Yeah, we definitely, social media can be a huge tool if used properly. Mm-hmm. It can also be a big black hole, and you're using it the right way. We feel bad for those that are just purely addicted to social media, and they really don't have an outcome, that they're just going through a cycle over and over again. So it's great that you're doing that, because you have real world relationships that you're solidifying and nurturing online. And even like the example you gave, you have a senior, you just did the wedding, or you're doing the wedding, and then your wife's probably going to do the newborn shoot at some point in the future as well. So you're actually having customers for life when you're doing it.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the goal of like the senior aspect. If we're doing, back in the day when you just did the one senior session, you were done, they were at your studio for maybe 2 hours, and that was it. They'd order their pictures, you saw them, say, hey, have a nice day, and see you later. Now with the, especially with the destinations, the ones that do destinations with us, like we just came back from New York City. I spent 3 days with her and her dad, and then 2 other girls that went. So they're stuck with me for 3 days. So we end up building relationships. I'm a lot closer to the girls that travel because we're with each other so much, than I am the ones that, just do 1 or 2 shoots throughout the year. But it's about building those relationships throughout the year, with the program that we do. Right. So that, long-term future, we're able to shoot weddings. And so my goal is, like, we've been to the model program for about 3 or 4 years now. So in the next about 2 years, we'll start getting the ones that, from 2014, 2015 that are now, married or getting married. They're out of college, things like that. So then I can almost ignore the marketing aspect for the weddings. and just kind of get the referrals from what we've done in the past.
Right. That's great, because in these girls' mind, they probably don't even fathom any other photographer in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
Like, you are the photographer. Like, we talk a lot about that, instead of being a photographer, being the photographer. And just because of these relationships that you're building, and they're going to be, if somebody posts on Facebook, hey, does anybody know a photographer? They themselves are probably going to jump and say, hey, you got to use.
Yeah.
Right.
Got to hit them up.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's great. So I mean, long-term success, you know, you're planting all those seeds, and it's like, you know, it all is going to come full circle.
And it's a lot easier to sell to somebody who knows about you and your business, that have been in through the process, than it is, you know, someone just randomly off the street.
Right.
So that when it comes to like pricing a wedding, I give them the price. They're like, okay, yeah, no problem. Here's the check, you know, because they've been involved in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas somebody else that comes in, they have no idea who I am. They found me at a bridal show, whatever. They come in and like, well, why is it this? Why is it that? You know, there's questions about things, and now we have to convince them to use us, essentially. So whereas with the seniors, they've already used us in the past. They know the process. The parents are comfortable with us. It's just kind of, you know, hey, just sign the paper and we're done, type of thing.
Nice. So last but not least, what are you working on now, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we're doing a couple different things. So we got like the magazine that we're working on. I haven't really done too much with it, just kind of thrown out some ideas on a dartboard, essentially. But we're doing a lot of like the destination stuff. I'm gonna start doing a destination workshop type thing.
Yeah.
So where when we go to like Paris, or we go to London, or if we do Australia over the summer or whatever, we start bringing photographers with us as more of like a one-on-one type thing. So not necessarily like a group of 10 photographers. It's more of, you're with me photographing my clients on locations throughout the world.
Wow.
That's great.
It's more like a personal based thing. I work with you one-on-one for that. So we're kind of working on that. I do have a Facebook page. It's called Senior Model Program. So they can find me on there. And within that group, we talk about the senior model programs, how to, you know, expand it, how to build on your program, how to create a new one if you're just new to it, how to find seniors, things like that. So just kind of about senior talk, senior business strategies.
Great. We'll make sure that we include the link to that group as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Curtiss. This has been awesome. You've shared a lot of information for people to really think about, especially those that are transitioning into the field and making that leap. And again, like you said, it's just really having that business knowledge and helping, you know, that's going to help really guide you along the way, focusing on that and focusing on yourself. So.
Yeah. Thanks again for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Not sure where you jet setting to next.
I know. What's the next? Where's next?
I'm going to Arizona the 15th.
Nice.
So we're going out to Arizona. I've got 3 girls going, I think. But we're going to go shoot the Grand Canyon, do some stuff in the desert. We come back from there. I go to Paris in February.
I'm just going to hide in your suitcase.
There you go.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Talk Talks, sponsored by Photographer Entrepreneurs Association. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the association, go to photographerentrepreneur.com to learn more about photography business resources, templates, training, and support. We'll see you over there.